Hi, I'm Steven, and this is Lloyd, and we are from Just Got Played, and today we're going to talk to you about a modern classic, Formula D from Asmodee. Let me give you a brief description of how it works, and then we'll come back and tell you what we thought about it.
So this is Formula D. Now, if you have the Formula D box, it comes with a double-sided track, which is Monaco on one side and street racing on the other. I don't have that set up here. I have one of the expansion tracks set up. They're mini expansions. So this is Singapore, and this is the night track. So what you're doing in the game is you are controlling one of these race cars, and you have, this is just the basic version of the game. There is an advanced version with more complicated rules. But you have one of these devices. So it has a nice gear shifter to tell you what gear you're in. And it tells you track here how many wear points your car has. So different things will happen in the game will cause you to lose wear points. So if you ever get down to 0, your car blows up and you're out of the race. Your goal is, of course, to get around and get to the finish line first. You can play multiple laps. You can have pit stops. Typically, we'll only play one lap. So on your turn, what you do is you decide what gear you want to be in. So you can stay in the gear that you're currently at. You can shift up one gear, or you can shift down a certain number of gears. You can shift down one gear if you want. If you want to shift down more gears than that, you have to take wear points for shifting down. But as you can see here, each one of these gears is a different color, and it has some different numbers there. And that is because each gear has a die, and it's telling you the numbers that you can roll with the die for that gear. So there's second gear, and there's third gear, and there's fourth gear, and we have a fifth gear here, and then this crazy sixth gear here. So the reasons why you might want to, say, slow down and gear down is there are these corners on the track. So you can see this one, this has a 1 on it, which means I need to stop inside this zone at least once to avoid taking damage. This one here, I have to stop 3 times to avoid taking damage. There's also some handy things here to tell you the longest path through the corner is 7 spaces. The shortest path is 4 spaces. And so say there are some other cars that are out on the track. They already went because each sort of turn, the cars that are in front go first. So there's not as much of a log jam. But in a situation like this, I would have to make a decision, right? So I could stay in this gear and I could roll up to a 12. And if I rolled a 12, I would go way past this corner. And every space I go past this corner, which I haven't stopped in yet, say I'm this red car, that would be a wear point. So I would lose some of that. I could gear up and I could go really far and lose a ton of wear points. But probably I wouldn't be able to hold my car together until the end of the race. So in this case, one of the things that I might decide to do is gear down. Like say I geared down to here. So on this die, I can roll between a 4 and an 8. And it's not even distributions of what's on the die either. There are some cheat sheets to tell you what's there. So let's say I rolled this die and I got a 7. So normally when you're in a straight, you just move straight along. But when you're in a corner, you have to sort of follow these arrows. So I'm on this arrow that says I have to go here. So there's 1, and then I could go 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. So I didn't stop in that corner. I overshot by 1, so I would have to lose one of these wear points, which is fine. And then another interesting thing is because I ended my turn next to another car, each of us would need to roll this black die. And this is just to simulate us potentially colliding with each other. And so on a 12, I would be safe. I think it's a 1 through 4. If I rolled that, you would take another wear point of damage. So those are, there are some additional complications in rules. to the game. So this isn't a full overview of even the basic rules, much less the advanced rules, but it sort of gives you a sense of how you play the game and the interesting decisions that you have to make in regards to how you're going to spend your wear points and what gear you're going to be in. Are you going to try to push your luck to stay in a higher gear to go faster on a future turn, but maybe blow through a corner and take a bunch of damage? Anyway, so that's Formula D. So now Lloyd and I will tell you what we thought about it.
So, Lloyd, I said that this was a classic game. It's almost 25 years old, right? There was Formula D, D-E, from like 1977, 78, something like that, right? And now, of course, the modern version is Formula D, and it was on that tabletop series of videos, which is how I found out about it. So, it's a popular game, and it's still selling. So I guess that's why we're talking about it today. So, what can you tell me what you like about Formula D?
So, he said it's a modern classic. I just actually played it recently, and that's the first time I played it. It was actually kind of a running joke in the group because one player always wants to play it just because he's bad and he's always going to blow his car up. But having played it, I played the simple rules, the basic rules. And I think the thing I liked the most about it was so it's got a shifting mechanic where you're shifting up and down, and each gear has a different die that goes with it. So you start off with a D4 in your first gear, and it's got, like 1 to 3 spaces on it or something. And then it goes up to, a D6, a D8, a D12, I think, maybe a D20, and then it goes up to like a D30 or something.
Some ridiculous thing, right?
Yeah, and there's only like specific certain tracks you're going to use a D30 on because I think it goes up to like 20 something spaces at that point. But I like that. I like that shifting mechanic with the different dice that kind of pertain to your gear. So you weren't guaranteed to just automatically go faster. You could still end up in like gear 2, you can still end up rolling and going as slow as you were going in gear 1 on like 1 or 2 of the faces. So just because you upshifted didn't guarantee that you were going to necessarily go faster, but you had a better chance to go faster. So I just like that way they tied the dice in, because I've played several other racing games, and a lot of times the shifting just made you go faster. And you just kind of like paid a penalty for going faster or overheating if you kept going too fast. But I like the way this one used those dice to differentiate the gears.
Yeah, I love the shifting in this game because, you're staring at the corner and you're like, I want to go through this corner as fast as I can because I want to stay in the higher gear. Because if you shift down, then, it's harder to shift back up, right? You always want to be able to shift up and go faster and faster. And so you're staring at a corner and you're going, gosh, if I shift down here, I'll be safe, but maybe I can shift up. And if I get a decent roll, it won't be that bad. And there's other people behind me. So if I shift down and they don't shift, they're going to pass me. And right. So that decision about the game in the game is fun to me. Right, because it's like a push your luck mechanic almost. Because if you push your luck and don't downshift and you overshoot the corner, you could blow up your car and lose everything. So and you mentioned about your friend saying that he's not very good, he blows up, but that's how this game is supposed to be, right? Like you are either finishing first across the line or blowing up your car. That's all there should be. You should be burning your car up, ragging it around the track as hard as you can to get across that line. Because if you go across the line with a bunch of wear points on your car, then you're probably not in first place. And that sort of dovetails into what I like about the game. So I like that push your luck mechanism, but what I really like is that roll and move as a board game mechanism gets such a bad rap, right? There are so many bad games from our childhood that are roll and move. And so to have a game like this, which is essentially a roll and move game, on your turn, you roll a die and you move your car, right? But it has strategic depth. It has, I mean, I'm not going to say it's really deep, but there are interesting decisions to be made about what die am I going to roll, and what result, and the fun of the die rolling, like, what result did I get? Like, sure, I got into that fast gear, but I rolled crappy, so somebody's going to pass me. Or I went into that high gear and I rolled at the top number, and now I just beat my car up, And so yeah, I like that a game took that maligned mechanism and made it something that is fun, right?
And it gives you because like it's not, a lot of those old roll and moves are like a single track or like Clue, and everything's like equidistance away. So you like rolling a 6 in like something like Clue. Yeah, you have all those extra spaces you can move, but you only want to get to the door. Whereas in this game, because you have those different lanes, you're constantly, you're doing like a race car driver. You're trying to take the best part of the turn, and if I go up to the top of the curve here, or towards the outside, I can get 2 extra spaces, which means I don't have to downshift even if I roll the top number on that die. So yeah, there's a lot of strategery with your die rolling, just because of the amount of spaces and how they line up on the board. You're not just in a single line, right? Yeah.
So, but if there's something that you don't like about the game, what would that be?
So, it goes back to the actual. I mean, you're not doing a whole lot in the game. You're basically you're rolling your dice and you're moving. So your whole turn comes down to moving your car, and to some degree, you can kind of plan out on your own turn or on other players' turns, what you want to do, and count up your spaces and figure out what you're going to do. But sometimes especially if other people, get different, they don't necessarily take the most optimal course, or they try to push their luck and you don't expect them to push their luck because they're already about to explode. You can't really plan your turn around them. So sometimes, there's a lot of downtime between turns while everyone is trying to now calculate their turn on their turn, now that everyone else has moved their cars and kind of clogged up the track. So what you can plan somewhat on your turn, right? Like, do I want to downshift or not? But all of a sudden someone's now, gone into that space, and it's like, because of the way the game works, you can't zigzag. So you can't like go out and then come back in on the same move. And now that person's in your way. So I think a lot of people
can zigzag. You can zigzag to avoid somebody, except in the corners where you have to.
You can
obey the arrows, right?
Yeah, well, the corners are where a lot of the planning comes down, right? Is because you have to follow those arrows, and if you're like, I want to get into this lane, and then go down in because most of the time when you're coming into a turn, right, like you can go from the outside to the inside, but you can't do the other way or vice versa. So you're always trying to plan how you're going to like enter the turn so you can make use of those arrows. So I think what happens, because people are always waiting for everyone else's turn to get where their cars are going to be, everyone waits till their turn to decide what they're going to do. So they don't even think about any type of like tactics until it's their turn. So maybe there's just a lot of downtime, just because I think a lot of people are waiting for those cars to get in their final position before they waste their brain power trying to decide what they're going to do.
Yeah, no. When I'm running this game, it's typically we got 8, 9, or 10 players, so I am just on people. All right, your turn's coming up. If you got your gear picked, you got to roll your die. So I sort of keep things moving with the game. So usually in my group that doesn't happen, but I have seen that before, right? Like, and occasionally there is one player who just can't decide and sort of slows it down. And, I like that this is a high player count game, but any game with 10 players is going to be slow if the players are slow. So you've got to, you got to keep it moving. But, definitely the players and how they play it can make a big difference there. So as you could probably tell, I love this game. So I don't have a lot that I dislike about the game. And in fact, the thing that I would say that I dislike the most about the game is almost not even the game to me. And what I mean by that is I feel like there are simple games that are really good that don't need complications, right? I don't need to play King of New York because I've got King of Tokyo. I don't need to play Red Rising because I've got Fantasy Realms, right? So I don't feel like I need to play the advanced version of Formula D because I've got the beginner version. So, I've looked at it. Like, I've played this game more than 20 times. I've played a dozen different tracks, and I have never even tried the advanced version because I look at it and I go, why? Like, why all this extra complication? What I like about the game, it has that still in there, but it just doesn't look as fun. So why play it? And so
it's more like arcadey to a simulation.
Yeah. And I mean, it's silly sort of for that to be my dislike because whatever. Some people like it and it's in the box and I can ignore it, so I don't really care that it's there. But I just wish designers would stop trying to complicate games sometimes. But if I had to say something that I disliked about it, that's a reach for me.
Well, there was another game that I had, which I don't have anymore, but it was like Russian Crush, and it was like kind of a Death Race 3000 type game, and it did the same thing. It had two different rule sets, right? It had like an arcade mode, which got rid of all like the rolling for damage and all this stuff. It was just like, if you're here and this car's here, you can hit them, and the gear shifting was very simplified, and then. Which fits for that game. You just want to roll around and kill stuff like Thunder Road. But then it's like they put this whole separate thing where it's like a simulation, and now you have to, roll a die, and on a 2 through 6, and, you do this, and on a 1 this happens, and if they're here and you're here, and it's like, this is a game about driving around shooting people. And why is it so complicated? And I think it's kind of the same thing with this. It's a quick roll and move, and then they try to put all these extra mechanics on top of it to flesh it out, probably because a certain group of people complained in playtesting that there wasn't enough game there.
Yeah, I mean, there are groups of people who do a whole F1 season, like over multiple tracks, and they keep scoring points, and they do qualifying, and so I get it, right? Like, you could make a complicated thing out of this. That's not how I want to play this game.
Yeah, I've played it. I've only played it, I think, twice. And we both played it the simple times. We didn't use the weather effects. We didn't use, any of the advanced rules that make the turns a little bit more wonky to go in and out of. It was just the straight, simple. And I was like, that was it. It was a fun game. I think there was like 5 of us playing, or 6 maybe. And it was, a quick, fun game. Like I said, there was those issues with people taking their time with their turns, counting out, trying to kind of min-max. Well, if I get 6, I can go here, but if I get a 4, I'm going to go here. What am I going to do if I get a 5? And that kind of stuff. But
the only sort of calculating we ever do is like, how far is the corner from where I am? And the numbers are right there on the board. So you don't have to count it all out. You can see like, I'm 15 squares from the corner. Okay, great. So, because you need to know kind of how far you are from the corner. And it tells you right there on the board, too, like the longest path through the corner and the shortest path through the corner. So you can sort of quickly look at the board and get those numbers and be like, all right, I'll be safe if I roll a 20. But if I roll a 25, I'm going to take a ton of damage. Let's chance it, whatever. But like there's one guy in my group that would always downshift. He would always downshift going into a corner if he thought he was going to lose any of his wear points. And so at one point we started calling him Downshift, like that was his nickname. But, so anyway. All right. Well, that is Formula D by Asmodee. I'm Steven. This is Lloyd. And we're from Just Got Played. If you enjoy videos like that, like this, talking about games like Formula D, let us know in the comments, and hit the like button if you liked it, so we know you liked it, so we know to make more content like this. And feel free to subscribe to see more of our fun videos. All right. Well, thanks, everybody.
Vroom, vroom, vroom.
sound. Just put random sound effects if you make car noises all through the video. It's gonna be great.